Hello and welcome to Straight Talk for Real Life, produced by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Most people would agree that the mental health impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been quite significant. Our emotions are much higher than normal, so perhaps you've noticed that it's easier than ever to feel anger or sadness, depression, and worry. But times of crisis are not just a time of anxiety and worry. They're also an opportunity for us to show compassion to ourselves and to others and discover just how important that is to moving forward. This special episode is going to be packed with important information that you won't want to miss that will get you through today as well as through whatever tomorrow brings. Hi there, I'm Bob Peacock. Welcome to Straight Talk for Real Life. I don't know about you, but for many of us during the past several months, our minds have been on a loop, constantly chattering worries and negative thoughts. Millions of people around the world have been helped by practicing something called mindfulness. You're in for a treat today. Not only do my guests have amazing insights and expertise in helping people cope with stress in times like these, they also have two of the most beautiful and calming voices you'll ever hear. One of the many company-paid resources available to all HPE team members around the world is the world's leading meditation app called Headspace. If you've given it a try, you might have even heard the voice of one of my guests today. Eve Lewis started her career in the ultra-stressful world of advertising. But then 8 or so years ago, she tried the first ever version of Headspace, and it changed her life. She joined Headspace in London in 2013, and then in 2019, she became the female voice on Headspace, heard by millions of people around the world every day, leading many of the guided meditations along with Headspace founder Andy Puddicombe. Along with Eve, we also have Tom Freeman, who is manager of global engagement at Headspace. He has been with the company since 2012. And both are joining us from their homes in California. Welcome, Eve and Tom. It's great to have you with us. We've titled this episode, Being Kind to Your Mind in Times of Uncertainty. What does being kind to your mind mean?
Well, first of all, hello, Bob, and hi, everyone who is listening wherever you are, whether you're at home or perhaps back in the office. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I think, Bob, you so eloquently put in the introduction that you're right. I think right now, and particularly in the past few months, feelings of high stress, high anxiety, high uncertainty, worry, anger, frustration, like all of the spectrum of feelings and emotions have been very present. So I'm really excited to be here to kind of talk about how the benefits of meditation mindfulness can not only support us through these really challenging times, but support our mental health for the long term. And that's really where mindfulness comes in, and what we mean by what does being kind to your mind mean is, well, at Headspace, our vision is to improve the health and happiness of the world. Mm-hmm. And we really believe that this starts with the mind, this precious resource that we all have, but it tends to get a little bit neglected. I think we're all very good, or we have a much better relationship with looking after our bodies than perhaps we did in the past, exercising, trying to follow a healthy diet. But when it comes to the mind, it's this intangible object, and we can't see it. And but it literally governs everything we do, every action we take, every word we speak, every emotion we feel. So we actually help you be kind to your mind by training in mindfulness, which is the quality of being present with a soft and open mind. I think when it comes to talking about meditation and mindfulness, the two can be talked about kind of interchangeably, but there is a really important difference. Mindfulness is the quality that we get from doing meditation. So in the last few weeks, last few months, I think especially so after the lockdown, I think it was so easy. And to be honest with you, I think it is so easy now to get caught up in those feelings of worry, of anxiety, of uncertainty. And these are all very normal feelings to feel. So we're not talking about trying to push them away. We're not talking about trying to resist them, but it is trying to take a different perspective. Because if we are spending so much time caught up in perhaps rushing ahead to the future, which I think for a lot of us, that's probably where we're heading right now, about what's to come, what's going to happen. And that's, again, very normal. Or likewise, we're perhaps staying stuck in the past. We're not actually able to be there for ourselves or other people. And I'd love to just share a stat actually that was came out of a study that was run by Harvard in 2010. And honestly, when I heard this stat, I almost fell off my seat because it's pretty crazy, really. So in 2010, they run this study on mind wandering, and it found as adults, we spend 47% of our waking hours lost in thought. Now, that's a significant amount of our time not in the present moment. And I'm not suggesting for a second that all of that will be spent in sort of negative rumination. You know, it's great to daydream, it's great to imagine and think about amazing things that have happened in our life. But as humans, we have a bit of a tendency to go to those places and get lost in thought of all the things that we're not good at, we can't do, worrying about what might happen. And that is 47% of the time we're not in the present moment. So for me, you know, taking time, giving ourselves permission to pause, that is the being kind to your mind piece. And so that's where the meditation comes in. So we need ways to remind ourselves to be present. And often we ask, well, can't I just be mindful all the time? And that would be great if we could do that. But unfortunately, life's really busy, very stressful, and so we need those ways to train in being present and giving, as I said, giving ourselves permission to pause. That's been a real kind of lifeline for me in a way.
I'm curious, how did each of you get started in mindfulness and meditation?
But yeah, going back a little bit about my experience of how I actually got into meditation and mindfulness, it was about 10 years ago now, actually. I was in my final year of university back in the UK. I did a master's in business psychology, and I went and saw a therapist, which for me was one kind of hurdle to get over, to kind of talk about my problems. And after a few sessions, he suggested I gave meditation a try. And I was quite skeptical at first. I didn't know much about it. And after trying it for, you know, just a few moments, a few minutes a day, I found that it really helped me in so many areas, particularly when it came to stress, but also having that sense, as Eve mentioned, around awareness and compassion. So I think when it comes to this question about being kind to your mind, personally speaking, this practice has been really helpful in terms of having that awareness, in particular, like really noticing, taking a moment when I can see that I'm being maybe overly hard on myself, go for it, like going back to that idea of an inner voice. How are we talking to ourselves? Maybe we're being really hard on ourselves and beating ourselves up when something didn't work out. And I think when it comes to applying kindness and compassion, it's really for me about having that sense of permission to feel how you're feeling in the first place, and then remembering some compassion around, okay, how could I reframe this or rethink this to be a more compassionate way to talk to myself, and kind of, you know, really just look at it in a more compassionate way. And one other quick thing I found is been particularly helpful is to also just take a moment to remember kind of the good things, or maybe things that I'm particularly grateful for. I think it can be so easy to move so quickly through life and not always take a moment just to check in around, okay, wow, these things are actually okay right now, or I'm really grateful for having these. And one quick practice I found that's been quite helpful is just at the end of the day, maybe writing down 2 or 3 things that we're grateful for, or maybe good things that happened in our day. And that reminds me to have that sense of kindness in terms of, okay, yeah, things have been going okay today. You know, of course, not everything is rosy and right, but particularly, I think there's maybe a few things there that really are important to remember and to not forget.
Eve, how about you?
First person to notice that I had been doing something differently was actually, well, my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, because he says I was much nicer to be around. And that's kind of really stayed with me. So similar to Tom, I started my meditation journey about like 8 or 9 years ago. 8 years ago. Gosh, I mean, I lose track of the days now, but I was working in a pretty thankless industry and was incredibly stressed, but I probably wasn't identifying that I was consumed by stress. But as the sort of days and months wore on, my sleep was so bad. I was waking up with this like tight knot in my chest. But I just put it down to being busy. I'd had pretty challenging time sort of a few years prior to that. My father actually was an alcoholic, and so there had been a lot of stress around in my life for quite a number of years. But I just, and maybe it potentially is, I feel like Brits are quite good at bottling things up, but my sleep was impacted. A lot of my relationships around me were breaking down, and honestly it felt like my head was actually going to explode. And I was talking to a friend who suggested that I try some meditation, and a bit like Tom, I was very skeptical. And I think the words almost that came out of my mouth were like, I'm not one of those people. And honestly, it was because I had very little understanding of really what it was. I immediately associated it with being very religious, very spiritual, which, if that's how you want to approach it, is absolutely fine. It just wasn't something that I felt would be relevant for me at the time. So needless to say, I actually did go and see a therapist as well, who also recommended I try meditation. So I finally did, and I'll never forget my first session. I was sitting in my apartment in London, and it was just 10 minutes, and the feeling I got from just stopping, from just pausing, from sitting still, from not doing anything was so overwhelming that I couldn't believe that just putting things down and stopping could have such an impact. So that was my first session. I mean, as I'm sure Tom will probably agree, meditation isn't necessarily always easy. You definitely get a huge amount of benefit, and I would say most of the time, it will generally take you from a feeling of being pretty stressed and overwhelmed to feeling much calmer. But we are dealing with the mind, and the mind is a pretty complicated place. So difficult things can come up. And so I think being kind to yourself throughout the journey is really important, because there'll be days when you don't feel like practicing. There'll be days or months when you stop practicing completely. That has happened to me. But I think, and as I said before, when my husband noticed some differences, or at the time my boyfriend, that's when I was like, okay, this is good. This is something I should do more of, because the people around me are being positively impacted by this. And compassion is actually something that Tom and I have not only talked about, but been sort of working on a project here at Headspace of thinking of ways we can bring more compassion, not only into the workplace, but into our own lives as well. For me, meditation has been an excellent resource at helping me to kind of deal with stress, deal with anxiety. But I think where I've had the biggest benefit is in it having that positive impact on people around me. So I'm able to perhaps listen sort of more, present. I'm more present when I'm with people.
Yes.
Not all the time, I'll be honest. But I think if we're able to actually pause and give ourselves space and actually learn to, and how we sort of phrase this at Headspace is making friends with our mind. Because it's not about trying to change ourselves. We're not trying to become different people. But I think we are learning, it's about learning to accept yourself. And if we're able to have that compassion to ourselves, it then trickles out to other people. It's kind of like a ripple effect. And, I think now more than ever, the world just needs so much more compassion, because we're so interconnected in this life that we share. We are part of a shared human condition. Right now, the entire world is experiencing the global pandemic at scale, and many other challenging situations taking place around the world as well. So if we are able to bring those moments of kindness into our lives and into the lives of other people, I think we're in a much better place to know and or to take skillful action, both for ourselves and for other people. So I think for me, the compassion and kindness piece has been the biggest game changer.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I think we've all heard about meditation. We all have an idea of what meditation is. Probably fewer of us know what mindfulness is. What is the difference between the two? And I know you talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but can you kind of go through each of those again?
So I'm going to start with meditation. So meditation is the practice. That is where we intentionally take ourselves away to sit for say 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it is. But we are really doing a practice. We are training our mind to be in the present moment. We are reminding ourselves what it is like to be in the present moment. So meditation is really the practice piece. So there's many different types of techniques. I'm sure some of you listening have used some of our content. You'll know that there are different techniques that we use, but predominantly we use a combination of sort of calming and insight meditation. So the calming piece is where you focus your attention on an object. More often than not, it's the breath. And then the insight part is really where we start to notice how often we get distracted or how often we get caught up in thinking. I think lots of people think that in order to meditate, you actually have to completely clear the mind of all thinking, of all thoughts, of all emotions. We're actually doing the opposite in meditation. We're learning to be okay with the mind however it is. So allowing thoughts to come and go, realizing when we get caught up in and distracted, whether we're running after thoughts or pushing them away, and then coming back to the present. So that's the practice part. And then mindfulness is that quality of being present. So that's really the piece that we want to take into the rest of our day. Now, it's probably almost impossible to stay mindful 100% of the time in your day. The reason we need the meditation is to remind ourselves of those qualities that we already have within us, and then we bring that into the day. So mindfulness is the output of meditation, really. That is the quality that we're trying to take with us into the rest of our day.
So is it true that you can practice mindfulness anywhere? You can be on the bus, you can be in your car. I was reading an article that said you can apply mindfulness even while you're washing your hands, which we're doing more these days than ever.
Absolutely. It's about bringing your attention to whatever it is you're doing in the moment. So whether you are washing your hands, whether you are riding a bike, going for a run, in a conversation with someone, hopefully people are generally quite mindful when they're driving, just from a pure awareness standpoint. But yes, it is the ability to be in the present moment, no matter what you're doing, bringing your attention to whatever it is.
That's terrific.
Yes.
So I'm just curious for both of you, how many times a day do you intentionally pause for, I guess, mindfulness? Probably more times than you could even count. How about meditation?
Good question, Bob. It's definitely a practice. And again, I think speaking personally, I found that over time, at the beginning, it was really hard. The mind just wanders a lot. And also in terms of, just coming back to the breath during the day, whenever you're doing what you're doing, particularly when you're learning this new skill, I think it's completely normal for the mind to wander quite a lot. But personally speaking, I've found that over time with practice, it's been really helpful. And I think, again, it's really useful to separate meditation and mindfulness there. And I think, just practically speaking, the question we hear a lot is, okay, how do I make these things part of my day, part of my routine? And if I may offer a few thoughts around, I think when it comes to meditation, I think consistency is really helpful in terms of time of day. Mm-hmm. So at Headspace, we do kind of suggest the morning as a time to do it. I think it's a good way just to, again, personally speaking, I find it's quite nice to start the day with a few moments and just getting some more calm and clarity, whether that is 3, 5, 10 minutes. So I kind of block out some time in the morning, and also as a team here, we block out time at 10 a.m. to do a meditation together over Zoom, which I think is just a really nice way of just having that shared experience of coming together and looking after the mind together in that moment. So it works for everyone in different ways. Some people really like doing it in a group. Some people prefer doing it on their own. Of course, it's totally fine. And also finding a space, I think, that works. And I think when it comes to mindfulness, again, again, of course, it can be applied to so many areas of life. Again, I think, during this current situation, I think it's been really interested. And again, speaking from someone that's working from home, like I'm sure many people still are, like taking those mini moments in the day, I found to be really helpful. So it might be washing our hands and just kind of being with those sensations of washing our hands. But I've also found that, taking a break, going outside, taking a 5-minute walk around the block, if you can where you are and it's safe to do so, but just taking a moment, leaving my phone at home and just being present with the sounds going on, maybe the sensation of the wind or the sun on your face, which we're lucky to have here in Southern California. But like really just taking in what's going on around us, I think can be so powerful, and particularly if you're at a computer all day, those mini moments of going outside and just being present with what's going on around us, I think is really important when it comes to looking after our mind. And this is a practice. It might start with, just one mini moment of noticing a sound, or maybe some birds singing in the trees. And those mini moments, through the day can add up.
Absolutely. Eve, anything to add on that?
I think the biggest thing is don't be too hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've learned over the years when we've asked members for feedback in terms of how we create new content experiences at Headspace. And more often than not, most people have a really good intention around wanting to make time for things like meditation and mindfulness, which is amazing and really, really great to hear. But I think when it comes to reality, that can sometimes be at odds with each other. For me, I meditate in the morning because the mornings are my favorite time anyway. I love it when the house is quieter. I tend to get up before my husband. There's just a stillness in the air. But it's taken a while to get that rhythm. I've really experimented with, in fact, just a few months ago, I was meditating in the afternoons because I was finding that actually I was getting a bit of a slump towards the end of the day, and I needed a bit of a reset. So it really is about playing around with what works for you. And I think if you are new to meditation, new to mindfulness, new to Headspace, start really small. I think the more pressure we put on ourselves to carve out big chunks of time in our day, the more likely we are to maybe fail or just not do it how we intended, and then we get frustrated and then we just simply stop. So I think we have the basics course in the app, which is a really good place to start with learning the fundamentals of meditation and mindfulness. And the sessions in the basics actually start as little as 3 minutes.
Yes.
And I think finding the same space, if that's possible, is really helpful because it's kind of your space.
And the whole showing compassion to yourself, for me, the hardest part of getting started is not finding the time. You've got to make the time, I believe. Is that true?
Yes. So I'm so glad you brought that up because it's something that we have heard, and I have made multiple excuses myself. I don't have time, I'm too busy. And really, we all have a choice. We do have, for the most part, we are pretty much the sort of ruler of our schedules, for the most part. And it's if there is intention there to bring some mindfulness and meditation in, perhaps you genuinely believe you'll get some benefit from it. Hopefully that motivation will help you make the time. It's a bit like going exercising or doing other things that you enjoy. You have to make the time for them, because I've definitely been guilty of this as well. You can be on Facebook or Instagram and suddenly 45 minutes have passed and you're like, wow, how did that happen?
Right.
So we all do have time. It's just how we choose to spend it.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Well, Eve mentioned a really important word there around intention. And
yes,
I'd encourage people to just take a moment maybe to think about their intention and their motivation, why they're coming to these practices, maybe even writing it down on a post-it note and sticking it on a mirror on your laptop or wherever you do your meditation maybe, and just remember, I remember feeling a bit less stressed or having a bit more clarity in my mind when I sat for 5-10 minutes. And also, I think the other side of that is after we sit and do a meditation, maybe just checking in for a moment and just seeing how you feel, and it kind of reinforces that intention. Like, this is why I did this, and Okay, yeah, it feels good. Or I'm noticing this in my life, or as you've said, other people are noticing this in my life right now. So just remembering that intention and also checking in afterwards, I think, is a really helpful part of making this a practice that can stick.
Yeah, it's actually a really important part of the practice for being really clear about why you're taking time out. And if you struggle to identify something for yourself, maybe thinking about people that around you that might benefit from you being calmer and more compassionate can actually be a nice way to frame it. And then, as Tom said, yeah, the checking in piece is really important. That sort of assessment of how we're feeling and acknowledging it. And there's no right or wrong answer. I think that's a really important point to call out. We're not trying to, as I said, create something. We're giving ourselves space to be who we are, fully accepted, and without judgment.
If there's one positive thing that has come out of the past several months, one study showed that people felt strengthened relationships with family and friends. And there's really been an increased focus on mental health. So I would expect that Headspace and other similar apps have seen more people than ever giving meditation and mindfulness a try. What is the best way for someone to get started with meditation and to make it a part of their daily routine?
We have actually seen a lot more, I think, across the board in terms of people being interested in things like meditation and mindfulness. I think this global health crisis has really shone a light on not only the importance and the fragility of our physical health, but also our mental health.
Yes.
More now than ever. And it's amazing to see how seriously this is now actually being taken. So that is good across all kind of levels.
Just to give our listeners a taste of what that could sound like. Eve, would you mind, is it possible for you to guide us through kind of a brief exercise, maybe 1-2 minutes that would let us know what that would be like?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's do it. So if you are at home, hopefully you're sitting somewhere comfortable, but if you're not, find a seat, maybe on the sofa, on a chair, or you can sit cross-legged on a cushion on the floor, really whatever is comfortable for you. And we'll just start by taking a big, deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe in, just noticing how the body expands. And as you breathe out, watching the body soften, and you can just gently close your eyes. So rather than the mind needing the breath, allow the breath to lead the mind. So we're just noticing sensation of the breath. Just noticing where you feel it in the body. And if you need to, just gently place your hand on your stomach. And just following that rising and falling sensation. And just placing our attention on the breath for a few moments. Bring the in and the out breath. Nothing else to do, just allowing thoughts to come and go. And then when you're ready, you can just gently open your eyes again. Have a little stretch if you'd like, and maybe just notice how you feel. I know that was very short, but even just 1 or 2 minutes, just giving ourselves a brief moment to come back to the present moment can be quite impactful in our day. So just checking in with how you feel.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much for that. Eve, I know that you develop so much of the content that we get to experience on Headspace, and there are still so many unanswered questions about this kind of new world that we're living in. And there's a lot of stress and anxiety because of that. What content on Headspace do you think that would be the most helpful right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And I think, everyone's situations right now are going to be very different. Some people are returning to work, some people are staying at home, and that in itself is going to throw up a lot of feelings of, as you say, worry, stress, uncertainty. So I'll start by saying that whatever you're feeling is completely okay. I think normalizing our feelings and accepting them is really important. But in terms of the specific resources and tools that I think would be really helpful for people, again, if you are brand new to Headspace, brand new to meditation, definitely starting with the basics. That is the fundamentals of meditation and mindfulness. It's a really lovely technique called focused attention. But if you really would like to get to very specific focused content around stress and anxiety, we do have a collection of content at the moment called Weathering the Storm. There are specific exercises in there, meditations, movement exercises to help with stress and anxiety and sleep. Very important. If you'd like to learn more about how to manage anxiety on a longer term basis, I would definitely recommend our Managing Anxiety course. And the same goes with stress, our Letting Go of Stress course. Both of those are 30 days. As I said, don't feel you have to do it every day. You can perhaps allocate 1 or 2 sessions a week to those, but they dive into much more detail and in depth about how to manage our anxiety and how to manage our stress, regardless of what situation we're in. Our sleep section on the app, I think, is also very beneficial at the moment. Generally, when we're feeling stress or anxiety or worry, it can have a pretty bad impact on our sleeping quality or our sleep quality. And I would definitely recommend checking that out if that is you. We have a whole host of meditations, mindful exercises, but also just some sleep exercises that will really help you to kind of wind down and hopefully allow you to have a better night's sleep. But if none of that suits you, I would use our search functionality in the app, and you can type in what you're looking for, and hopefully it will pop up with exactly what you need.
Thank you both so much for joining us on the podcast. Mindfulness and meditation are valuable tools, especially in times of crisis, but you can use them in every aspect of your life. When you care for your own mind, you're more able to listen and have compassion for family members, friends, and coworkers as well. HPE has made Headspace available to you absolutely free. Maybe you've tried it in the past and you just couldn't make the time. Maybe this is a perfect time to try it again. If you're outside the U.S., you'll find a link to set up your free Headspace membership and many other resources on the Global Wellness page on HPE Insider. And if you're in the U.S., you'll find those links on HPE Wellness. Our thanks to Eve Lewis and Tom Freeman from Headspace. We hope this has been helpful to you. We appreciate you taking the time to listen in. Until next time, take care of yourself. Let's talk again soon.